is promoting under the label Big Society. I was at a meeting in Doncaster a couple of days ago, and the amount of hostility to the idea of Big Society and to the, in particular, the government programme for Big Society was quite striking. What was more striking, though, was the amount of confusion about what it is, and the sense of shock that actually, in real terms, there wasn't a lot of money attached to it. And so we have moved from an era in which things happened because government wanted them to happen, and they had programmes and there were funding streams, and you bid for the funding streams, and stuff was done in an orderly fashion, but possibly a very slow fashion, and possibly in a very effective fashion on the back of that, to an era where we don't really know what's going on. And to an era where some of the changes that are taking place are changes that are probably fairly seismic and long term, and we are going to have to find new ways of coping with those. And so the reason that we're getting together tonight is just to start to explore some of those issues and some of the ways of coping. There's lots of debate going on about Big Society. There's a LinkedIn group if you're into that. If you're one of the great and the good and you've joined the RSA, they've got a group about Big Society. There's the Big Society Network, which we'll hear a little bit more about in a few minutes, because that's not really a network. And there are any number of other debates going on about Big Society. Urban Forum have done some very good stuff. Local voluntary groups have done a lot. So there's lots of discussion. So I don't really want to add to that discussion. What I want to do is think about how we can start to move forward in some practical ways, and how we can build networks that might help to create the kind of society that we might all sign up to one way or another. Quick introduction. Our society has come out of a forum that was set up back in the summer last year called Big Society in the North, and the idea behind that was that we needed a space outside government, outside the kind of political discourse, to consider some of the ideas that were being discussed under the label of Big Society, and think about how they would work for us, and how we could move into that territory and make it real, make it something that felt relevant to people who are involved, either working with communities or supporting others who are working in communities, or just as general punters. There were a number of us who were involved with that. The Magnificent Seven, who I'll now introduce to you, minus one of them, at least, who's not here. So myself, I'm Julian Dobson. I'm a writer and kind of jobbing consultant and other things. And my interest in this stems from 12 years of running a magazine that was about community regeneration called New Start. I'll introduce John, who's over here. So you have to stand in front of the camera for a minute.
I have to stand behind the camera. Hello, I'm John Popham. I do all sorts of stuff with social media and communities and public sector and things like that. All sorts of Big Society stuff, which I think increasingly we're not calling Big Society stuff, because it's what stuff. It's just stuff, and it's what people have been doing for years and years and years.
Yeah. Okay. So Emma.
Hi, I'm Emma. I work for an organisation called CDX, which is Community Development Exchange. I'm the only person in the room, I think, from CDX, but it's something that we've been very keen to support, because we're really concerned about the way Big Society does actually affect communities. And for us, we quite like the idea of the online stuff, but we still want to make sure that the communities out there that need the support are supported, and some way to capture what's happening through social media, maybe.
Paul.
Exit, no, stage one. Yeah, hiya. Paul Webster. I presume this is what we're doing, isn't it? I just walked in. Paul Webster from NAVCA, which is the National Association for Voluntary and Community Action, the umbrella organisation for CVSs and organisations like that. I help organisations understand technology and how to make the best of social media and sort of the basic tech. And my involvement with our society, is that the next question?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
I'm living from you here, I'm doing well, aren't I? Is there a bit of technology and a bit of how it interfaces and interacts with support organisations.
Fantastic. Sophie.
What am I answering? Sorry.
Who are you? Why are you
Same
involved
thing.
in it?
Why am I involved? Hello, I'm Sophie. I've said hello to most of you as you've come and signed in. I work at CDX, which is Community Development Exchange. I'm their communications officer, so I look after a lot of their publications and their website and all that stuff. My involvement in our society, I've been really quite interested in it from the start, from the big society in the north, and really trying to shift the focus from government to actually what we want it to be. Again, you've probably been greeted by me, for anyone who's signed up. I'm doing a lot of the back-end stuff, so just trying to keep the network running, trying to get people involved, trying to tease out a bit of content from everyone. So if you've got any thoughts on the network in particular, I'd be really interested to hear, and any suggestions for kind of improvements and all that good bits. I'm going to go through there because I've got to try and point people back through as they arrive. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Tan, great to have you here as well.
I'm
Wasn't sure whether you were going to make it.
just waiting. I'm also from CDX, and I'm the Practice Development Officer. So I've been involved at the beginning as well, involved in Big Society of the North Forum as well. Did a recent event in Manchester around Big Society, equalities and social justice.
Fantastic. Just a word of thank you to CDX, really, because CDX, although like a lot of organisations have been struggling with funding cutbacks and stretched resources, have actually been very helpful in helping to get our Society Forum off the ground, helping to host the website and the forum, and that's been really good because obviously when you don't have anything, it's anyone who can offer something that's helpful is great, and I think more importantly the kind of moral support that has come from CDX has been really helpful. And now I'm going to ask David to introduce himself and to put that camera down for
I'll give you the camera, there you go.
Okay, so there's David, and David is our kind of honorary southerner, and is from London, but we'll kind of let him off.
Honorary guest.
Thanks very much. I've been a journalist, a regeneration consultant and a social media specialist, and these days I'm trying to put them all together under the name of social reporting, which I see as helping people make sense, helping join up conversations, helping people do stuff, and I have enormous sympathy through my work with the kind of ideas and values of Julian and the rest of the crew. I did some work last year with Big Society Network. I'm going to be doing some more work with them as of next week. That network started off as aiming, I think, to connect fairly directly with local groups. It's repositioning itself now. What's happened is the major project called Your Square Mile is kind of slightly more detached from Big Society Network now, being taken forward by Paul Twyby. Steve Moore, who was always doing engagement and communications in the past for Big Society Network, is now acting as director, and the focus is going to be very much on innovation, social innovation. What are the areas of development which it's important to be advancing in the big society space to complement the work that's been done in the past. First area is going to be philanthropy. But I think that that kind of positioning of Big Society Network, which I think will actually be very helpful to people because they are quite close to number 10 in London, quite close to corporate, quite close to creative media and so on, I think can liberate some of those ideas and resources, but it does very much leave the space of helping connect local groups, local networks at the grassroots, rather open, and I'm very excited about what our society could do in that space.
Okay, thanks, David. Just following that up, really. Anyone who knows me will know that I'm not quite close to number 10. But if you are, then that's great, and it's good to have you on board. community action is something that we think crosses political boundaries, and people will be coming at it from very different political perspectives. But what I'd ask you all to do here tonight is to put that to one side for a minute and think about what do we actually want to get done in our communities, and how can we best do that, regardless of people's political backgrounds. Not that that doesn't matter, but that it's not the only thing that matters. And a lot of the big society stuff has turned into a kind of political slanging match that in my view, it isn't very helpful in terms of getting anything useful done. So we have people here from all sorts of backgrounds. Some of you can disagree with each other, that's okay, we'd encourage that, but we'd ask you to treat each other with respect. And we hope we can have a kind of mature and honest conversation about some of the things that people have written up here, which are obviously quite strongly felt, and they should be quite strongly felt, because they're about people's lives. Where do I see our society fitting in? I talked earlier on about the fact that there are lots of changes going on, which are going to be long-term. Public funding, whatever government we would have had if the election result had been different, and whatever government we get in the future, it's highly unlikely that the amount of public funding that was around in the past is going to be in the future. So we have to think differently about how we do some of the stuff that used to be funded from central government and from local government. There are arguments to be made about what central government should be funding and what local government should be funding, and we'd encourage you all to get involved in those arguments. They're important ones to have. But more generally, I think we need to think about what will make a network of people who are involved in community action more resilient. How can we do it faster? How can we do it smarter? How can we learn from each other without having to be dependent on resources that might be pulled away? Because if we are dependent on resources that are pulled away, then we are just going to have an endlessly repeating cycle of building things up only to get them knocked down again. And I think that our most disadvantaged communities and people who are most on the margins of society need better than that. They need better support than that. So really the point of tonight is to start to explore how can we start to do that. So I see our society as a network primarily for learning, for exchanging views, for sharing information, and for telling stories, which is something that I want to get onto later on. Because I think what's very powerful is when we are able to express ourselves about what's happening where we live or with the people that we're connected to. So later on we're going to do an exercise where we do what's called a book in 8 minutes. And this is a technique that was actually started by a good friend of mine, Brian Lewis, way back during the miners' strike, when he was working with women against pit closures. And it's just a way of getting people to express what they think, what they feel. And we're going to start to think about some of the successes, some of the struggles that we face, and we're going to spend a little bit of time just writing some of them down very briefly, and we'll pull those all together and do what we call a book in 8 minutes, which will then be shared on the Our Society network for other people to see, just where we are all coming from, the kind of diversity of ideas and hopes and struggles that we all face. So that's one of the things that we're going to be doing tonight. The other thing, which will be quite important, we'll be thinking about networks and how can we get the best from networks, and how can we create networks that work. And one thing that has changed since the days of community action back in the 1980s, when people were setting up community groups in response to cuts or to deal with the withdrawal of public services, which is quite similar to what's happening now. One thing that has changed is the ability of people to communicate very quickly and in a very widespread way through new technologies, through the internet, through social media. And so one of the things that we want to do with our society is actually pull together the, old and new ways of networking and try and create something that hopefully will work and be useful to people. If you think, well, this isn't for me, it's not going to work, that's fine. That's fine. Really, we can only do what people want to do because, again, we're doing it without resources, so we can't push an agenda. This really is over to you to say, what do you want to do? What do you think we can do? What's going to be useful? What's going to be helpful? If it's not going to be helpful, don't bother doing it. It's as easy as that, really. David mentioned Big Society Network. Yeah, our connection with Big Society Network is pretty loose, but obviously David is quite closely involved with them, and whereas Big Society Network is quite closely aligned to the political agenda of Big Society, we are not in the same way, but we believe in constructive engagement and in talking and in collaboration, and so our view of Big Society Network is if there's if there are ways in which we can work together, then that's great. As far as the kind of political Big Society agenda is concerned, I think we are my own view, and this isn't reflective of everybody else, but my own view is that it's a very, very difficult message to sell while a lot of services that people depend on are being cut, and therefore we need to construct a way of thinking that is outside of that, but which draws from the best parts of the Big Society agenda and the things that are useful and helpful in it. Okay, so that's where we are. Is there anything that I've forgotten before we carry on? Okay, what's going to happen now is Paul is going to come and get us to get to know each other a little bit, because what is the point of a network when I'm just talking to you?
Okay. And this is the bit when